Hello students. Today we will be starting with chapter number 2 of geography, that is forest and wildlife resources. Topics in the chapter are introduction, flora and fauna in India, classification of species, causes of depletion of the flora and fauna, conservation of forest and wildlife in India, types and distribution of forest and wildlife resources, last but not the least, community and conservation. But before we start the chapter, let us discuss some important terms which are included in the chapter. Biosphere, part of the earth which is covered by living organisms, both plants and animals, is known as biosphere. Ecosystem is an integrated unit consisting of the community of living organisms and the physical environment. Flora, plants of a particular region or period are referred to as flora. Fauna, species of animals are known as fauna. Forest, extensive areas covered with trees. Wildlife sanctuary, a reserved area for preserving natural beauty. And what is biodiversity? It is a sum total of all the varieties of species of plants, animals and microorganisms living on the earth. Now, let us start with the chapter. Students, our earth is home for millions of living beings, starting from the microorganisms and bacteria, lichens to banyan trees, elephants and blue whales. Let us discuss about flora and fauna in India. India is one of the world's richest countries in terms of its vast array of biological diversity and has nearly 8% of the total number of species in the world. That is estimated to be 1.6 million. But at least 10% of India's recorded wild flora. Wild flora means wild plant life, and 20% of its mammals are on threatened list. It's a matter of great concern that out of the total wild flora recorded, which is recorded in India, 10% of it and 20% of the mammals are on threatened list. Many are categorized as critical, that is on the verge of extinction, like cheetah, pink-headed duck, etc. The International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources, that is IUCN, has classified plants and animals in order of existence. Normal species. Normal species कौन से होते हैं? Species whose population levels are considered to be normal for their survival, such as cattle, sul, pine, rodents, etc. Normal वो होते हैं जो normally आप देख सकते हो. You can easily find them. For example, cattle, sul, pine, rodents, etc. Endangered species. These are species which are in danger of extinction. यानी कि वो खत्म होने के danger में है, danger zone में. For example, blackbird, crocodile, Indian wild ass, etc. Or vulnerable species. These are species whose population has declined to levels from where it is likely to move into the endangered category in the near future if the negative factors continue to operate. Vulnerable species कौन से species होते हैं? वो species जिनकी population decline कर रही, कम हो रही है, उस लेवल तक कम हो रही है कि इन द फ्यूचर इफ इट कंटिन्यूज, द नेगेटिव फैक्टर कंटिन्यूज टू ऑपरेट, दे विल मूव टू endangered category. For example, blue sheep, Asiatic elephant, Gangetic dolphin, etc. Rare species, species with small population, वो species जिनकी population already बहुत कम है, small population है, may move into endangered or vulnerable category if the negative factors affecting them continue to operate. For example, Himalayan brown bear, wild Asiatic buffalo, desert fox and hornbill, etc. Endemic species. These are species which are only found in some particular areas, usually isolated by natural or geographical barriers. ये वो स्पीशीज़ हैं जो कि कुछ लिमिटेड पर्टिकुलर एरिया में ही पाए जाते हैं. फॉर एग्जाम्पल अंडमान टील जो कि अंडमान में पाया जाता है ऑब्वियस, निकोबार पिजन, अंडमान वाइल्ड पिग, मिथुन इन अरुणाचल प्रदेश. Extinct species. These are species which are not found after searches of known or likely areas where they may occur. Extinct species वो species हैं जिनको काफ़ी ढूंढने के बाद, कहाँ ढूंढने के बाद, जहाँ we assume that they occur in those areas are not found. For example, Asiatic cheetah, pink-head duck, etc. They have extinct. Now, what are the causes for depletion of flora and fauna? क्या reasons क्या है for the depletion यानी कि कम होना या खत्म होने का? Human beings transformed nature into a resource obtaining directly or indirectly from the forest and wildlife, such as wood, barks, leaves, rubbers, medicines, dyes, food, fuel, fodder, manure, etc., which depleted our forest and wildlife. See, we the human beings are using forest and wildlife just as, we are considering forest and wildlife as resource obtaining area. So, for each and everything, maybe medicine, rubbers, etc., we are using the forest and wildlife, so which has depleted them. The various factors that causes depletion of flora and fauna are large-scale development projects. See, development is going on. Every country is trying to develop more and more. And this has led to the causes of depletion of flora and fauna. Then shifting cultivation is also one of the factors. Mining, grazing and fuel wood collection, overpopulation. See, overpopulation is the root of all sort of problems in the world. Factors responsible for decline in India's biodiversity. Now let us talk about the factors which are responsible for the declining of biodiversity in India. Habitat destruction, hunting, poaching, overexploitation, environmental pollution, poisoning, forest fires, etc. Human greed has turned for the human greed has turned for the declining of biodiversity. Conservation of forest and wildlife in India. So when there is a problem, there is a solution. So the government has taken lot many steps to conserve forest and wildlife in India. Conservation preserves the ecological diversity and our life support system, that is water, air and soil. Due to conservationist demands, the Indian Wildlife Protection Act was implemented in 1972 with various provisions for protecting habitats. The aim of the program was protecting the remaining population of certain endangered species by banning hunting, giving legal protection to their habitats, and restricting trade in wildlife. See, the main aim of the program, which program we are talking about? We are talking about the Indian Wildlife Protection Act. The main aim was to protect the remaining population of the endangered species. The central and many state governments established national parks and wildlife sanctuaries. The central government also announced several projects for protecting specific animals which were gravely threatened, gravely yani severely threatened, including the tiger, the one-horned rhino and others. Project Tiger was also launched by the Government of India in the year 1973 to save the endangered species of tiger in the country. Under Wildlife Act of 1980 and 1986, several hundred butterflies, moths, beetles, and one dragonfly have been added to the list of protected species. Students, in 1991, for the very first time, plants were also added to the list, starting with 6 species. Types and distribution of forest and wildlife resources. In India, much of its forest and wildlife resources are either owned or managed by the government. Basically, the government looks after the forest and wildlife resources. through the forest department or other government departments. The forests are classified under the following categories. Reserved forest. These forests are regarded as the most valuable as far as the conservation of forest and wildlife resources are concerned. It covers half of the total forest land. Protected forest. This forest land are protected from any further depletion. मतलब जितना नुकसान हो चुका है वो तो हो चुका है, but they are protected from any further depletion. Almost 1/3 of total forest area is protected forest. Unclassed forest. These are other forests and wastelands belonging to both government and private individuals and communities. Means anybody and everybody can use it. Community and conservation. It's not only the government who are trying to conserve the forest and wildlife resources. Community is also taking equal part in that. The forests are also home to some of the traditional communities. Local communities are struggling to conserve these habitats along with government officials to secure their long-term livelihood. Examples are given. In Sariska Tiger Reserve, Rajasthan, villagers have fought against mining by citing the Wildlife Protection Act. Citing yani ki highlighting the Wildlife Protection Act. The famous Chipko movement in the Himalayas has successfully resisted deforestation in several areas. Chipko movement. चिपको मूवमेंट में क्या था कि लोग जब गवर्नमेंट अथॉरिटीज़ जब ब्रिटिशर्स आगे थे ट्रीज़ को कट करने के लिए, तो लोगों ने लोग अपने आप को ट्रीज़ के साथ चिपक गए थे. मीन्स अपने आप को उन्होंने एकदम हक कर लिया ट्रीज़ को कि दे विल नॉट अलाउ देम टू कट इट. एंड दिस मूवमेंट केम टू बी नोन एज चिपको मूवमेंट. The famous Chipko movement in Himalayas has successfully resisted deforestation in several areas. Also shown that community afforestation with indigenous species can be enormously successful. Farmers and citizens groups like the Beach Bachao Andolan in Tehri and Navdanya have shown that adequate levels of diversified crop production without the use of synthetic chemicals are possible and economically viable. Nowadays, you have heard about many sort of plantation, many sort of cultivation where chemicals are not being used. Joint Forest Management, that is JFM program, introduced in 1988 in the state of Orissa, shown good example for involving local communities in the management and restoration of degraded forest. Students in India, Joint Forest Management programs furnishes a good example for involving local communities in the management and restoration of degraded forest. The program has been in formal existence since 1988 when the state of Orissa passed the first resolution for joint forest management. JFM depends on the formation of local institutions that undertake protection activities mostly on degraded forest land management by the forest departments. कम्युनिटीज़ इस चीज़ में जॉइंट रेजोल्यूशन लेती हैं, साथ में वर्कआउट करती है इस चीज़ को, लाइक जॉइंट फॉरेस्ट मैनेजमेंट के लिए. इन रिटर्न द मेंबर्स ऑफ दीज कम्युनिटीज़ आर एंटाइटल्ड टू इंटरमीडिएरी बेनिफिट्स. उनको बेनिफिट्स मिलते हैं लाइक नॉन टिम्बर फॉरेस्ट प्रोड्यूसर्स and share in the timber harvested by successful protection. Non-timber products क्या होते हैं? Non-timber products are any products or services other than timber that is produced in forest. They include fruits and nuts, medicinal plants, etc. Whenever the community, when we are talking about joint forest management in which the government as well as the community collectively take part in managing the forest. In that case, the people belonging to that community are given some benefits like they can use the non-timber forest producers. This was the end of the chapter. I hope all the points are clear to you all. Thank you.